In 69, when I came in Aliyah, I was pregnant with my first child.
When you went to the Ministry of Agriculture and they showed you lists of places that were available, did they have a map of Gaza? Was it michulak? Was it divided into any areas, or was it all just like anyone can come, anyone can settle?
Anyone can come and anyone can settle. They were talking about this area because it was empty and there was nothing there. He pointed down in the sand. He said, "You guys are crazy. You can't grow anything here. Don't you know this is the cursed land? Because there's no way you're going to be able to grow in this totally inert sand that you pour water seeps right down. There's nothing in it. Totally inert."
So what did you do?
So we grew in the sand, but they were just developing.
So you grew in the sand.
We didn't have enough time to bring soil from the north and money, and they were just developing the drip method in Israel, in Netafim. And we were the first guinea pigs. I still have a little bit of guinea pigs. We were the first guinea pigs that tried them out. Everything was very primitive, and we taught them modern agriculture. And they were very appreciative of it until they brought Yasser Arafat. The first thing that he did was hang the mayor of Dir el-Balach, this nice man, Mukhtar, who spoke English, and his whole family in the streets of the town of Dir el-Balach.
He hung them?
He hung them on a tree. That's their culture. If you're strong, we respect you. If you're weak, we step all over you. As long as we were the strong ones, they totally respected us. And as soon as you showed any sign of weakness, then you could feel that they stepped on you. I think the first time there was ever anyone from our towns that was stabbed in the town of Khan Yunis was the day that Begin met Sadat for the first time.
Hi, and welcome to the Dayna Show, where we discuss in English day-to-day life of Israeli citizens, our concerns and aspirations for the country, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dayna Kaplan, and we're so glad that you could join us. I begin the podcast by mentioning that we still have hostages in Gaza, and we think about them every single day. Yesterday or 2 days ago, we had Idan Alexander, who was returned, and we're praying for the safe and fast return of the other 58 innocent Israelis who are stuck in Gaza.
Amen.
Amen. And on that note, I would like to read my introduction for you because there's a lot of things that I want to say and I don't want to miss. So welcome back to the Dayna Show, where we meet the people who are shaping Israel with courage, heart, and unshakable faith in the future. Today's episode takes us deep into one of the most emotionally charged chapters of modern Israeli history, the story of Gush Katif, through the eyes of a woman who helped build it from nothing but sand and dreams. My guest is Anita Tucker, one of the founding pioneers of Netzer Hazani, who transformed sand dunes into thriving greenhouses and a tight-knit community. Anita's journey is also deeply personal for me. She was in very close contact with my father, who dedicated himself to advocacy for Gush Katif and Israel. Their shared vision for the land and its people has stayed with me ever since. In this episode, Anita reflects on the early days, her friendship with local Arab leaders, and the painful experiences of the 2005 disengagement. We talk about what was promised, what was lost, and her enduring belief in the right to return. This is a story of faith, sacrifice, and the powerful bond between people and land, even after being uprooted. Now let's dive in. Welcome, Anita Tucker.
Wow, thank you for that nice introduction.
Wow.
And for me, it's an honor to be sitting with Israel Kaplan's daughter, Zichrono Livracha, because he was such a special, special person.
So I guess that's where we should start off. What I want to really do in this conversation is work from past, present to future. So I guess we can start off with my dad. How did you meet him? Do you remember?
I don't exactly remember, but he was one of the first people to contact us after Sharon decided on the disengagement, because most people kept the distance because the Prime Minister of Israel made this decision. This is something we should support. And even those that were hesitant to support it just kept quiet. And there were very few people that had the guts to come and say something is totally immoral in this decision. And your dad was one of them.
Yeah, so did he come out to Gush Katif to meet you?
He came to visit several times. He brought everybody that he could find. He was not shy. I never met a person that was not shy for a cause as he was. He would approach every person that he knew that had some influence, that had some funding, that could do something, and schlepped them down there to visit, to see, to understand. And when we needed the help, he smuggled in mattresses so that people would have where to sleep if they came in to support us. He pressured the rabbinate organizations that they should allow me to speak in the middle of the night. I got up at 3 o'clock in the morning. He connected me to the rabbinate conference, and I had to speak, and so that they would hear a different opinion from what they were constantly hearing from the media. And he worked so hard to try to make people understand the immorality of the uprooting people from the land of Israel, because in his eyes, it wasn't only that people lived there for 30 years and they were farmers and they turned the sand, but it was part of an integral part of the promised land of Israel.
Was there another time in history that the Israeli government leadership kicked people out of Jewish people out of their land to give it to Arabs?
Not that I know of. We know that a lot of the towns in Israel were Arab towns,
right?
That belonged to the kibbutz movement, the leftist kibbutz movement, and the Arabs fled because the Arab leadership told them to flee. And when they wanted to come back home, the Israelis were in there, and they wouldn't let them come back home. Mm-hmm. So then it was okay, and now it's okay. But by us, it wasn't okay. So it's very hard to understand. And the benefits we brought to our Arab neighbors, we see now how they are suffering. They're suffering.
The people in Gaza are suffering. Yeah. Can we go back a little bit to, you've been in Israel 50 years?
From 69. In 69, I came in Aliyah. I was pregnant with my first child. I had a very fast absorption, Soroka Hospital, 9 Bedouins and I.
9 Bedouins and you in the Cheder Leda. Wow. Do you remember, when you were growing up, you're American originally, right?
From Brooklyn.
From Brooklyn. Did you grow up with a Zionist ideology? What made you come to Israel? I
actually did. I had grandparents that lived in Israel, but I hadn't seen them because at that time you didn't just travel.
Your grandparents lived in Israel?
One set of grandparents came from Europe directly to Israel, and I had never seen them my whole life.
After the Holocaust? Before the Holocaust?
After the Holocaust.
After the Holocaust. Yeah. So they came to Israel, and then
my parents moved to America. My mother's parents were in America, from Europe also. And then we lived there, but I always grew up with a Zionist, outlook from my parents, and I was active in Bnei Akiva and the Zionist youth organizations, and I always wanted to come to Israel. And I came for a visit one time, and my husband, on the other hand, he had studied in Telz Yeshiva, and at YU got smicha, and they were not very Zionist. It was something he really never heard of. He never heard of coming to Israel.
And he never.
So it was one of the t'noim, we call the t'noim as the conditions for getting married, was that we would come and try to live there. So we came on a 2-year trial, and we were too lazy to come back, and we're still here.
Oh, really? So the 2-year trial was straight to Netzer Hazani?
No, we came in Aliyah to Beersheba. Everybody else that we knew was going to Tel Aviv or to Jerusalem, but we felt like we wanted to do the Zionist and we came to Beersheba with a group of Americans actually that also came in Aliyah to Beersheba, and it was very, very lovely. And all my relatives from Tel Aviv promised us that they would save us and we would be taken out of Beersheba soon and come back to civilization in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem.
So what was your living conditions like?
We lived in a building of people that had come on Aliyah, an apartment building that was in a terrible neighborhood actually of new immigrants from all sorts of countries, and very poor. And there were donkeys in their backyards. It was really very, very primitive. And I remember one time we bought in Tel Aviv a big sofa. And they came to deliver it with a donkey and a wagon to Beersheba, because that's how they brought things to Beersheba. And but there was a lovely community in the Yeshivat Bnei Akiva, in the Bnei Akiva High School. My husband taught, and he taught that school and in the high school. And it was a lovely community of a lot of Americans, and it was really people that cared about Israel and cared about. We became integrated very quickly. We had people. We began a synagogue again. With the first Young Israel in Israel, we started, and in Beersheba, and the people were from all different countries, all different backgrounds. It was very, very it was like what you want Israel to be, actually.
Yeah. And then how long did it take you to move out to
So
Gaza?
after 7 years, in
7
Beersheba,
years in Beersheba.
3 children later,
Yeah.
we said, what's going to be our children's challenge in life? We had the challenge to come on Aliyah. We want our children to have a challenge too. And then we heard about a neighbor who was going to be a farmer in some moshav, and it sounded like sexy. You know, we had no idea what it meant to be a farmer. So we went to the Ministry of Agriculture and we said, give us a list of places that are absorbing young, religious families that for farming. They gave us this list.
And you
from
had
the
no
north.
experience before. You
We
didn't
had
know
no
anything
idea. My
about
husband was a biology teacher. That was the only connection we had.
Okay.
I lived in Brooklyn. He's from Cleveland. We never saw a farm in our life, actually.
Okay.
But it sounded nice. And we looked. In the Golan, they were just beginning the towns. There was no really place to go to there. In the Galil, there's somebody who told us they're growing cows and they never left the house 365 days a year. They never leave their homes because they have to take care of the cows. That's not for us. And we kept on going. And then there was this place near Beersheba, 45 minutes drive in Gaza. We had never been in Gaza, but it was a place where people drove at that time.
Yeah.
Before the times of peace, it was no problem to drive to Gaza. So
and what was it like?
Yeah, so we put the 3 kids in the car, drove left, right, till we get there. And what do we see when we get out of the car? Just huge, bald sand dunes. And I said to them, and nothing, not a weed, not an insect, not anything, just nothing, just bald, huge sand dunes. And I said to Stewie, my husband, let's get out of here. Are we crazy? Like coming in our house, crazy enough. This was too crazy. So we would try.
This is a real challenge.
Yeah, so we started looking at the list, where to go look next. And meantime, the kids are getting bored. They were like 3, 5, and 6 or something. And they found some, some plastic or in the back of the car, they found some plastic garbage bags. And I see from the side of the eye, I'm watching, I'm arguing with my husband where we should go next. And on the side of my eye, where are they? They started to climb up the sand dunes and they keep slipping down. And finally they get to the peak of the huge sand dune, and they sit down on the plastic bags and in 1 second they were down on the bottom. And this warm, fine, so special sand hugged them in a way that it's hard to describe. And
the sand hugged them. They just felt instantly connected.
Special sand. And they came running to us and they said, "We're staying here." We slid down the sand dunes. We see the sea. That's it. And that's how we ended up living there for 30 years, almost 30 years. And sometimes, you think somebody's going to raise a big flag of ideology, and sometimes you just have to flow with God. And that's what happened to us. And there we were.
Wow.
Yeah, and so what do? There was no place to live. There were no farms. We moved.
How did you?
We lived meantime in a temporary location.
Did you get a
deeper into the Gaza Strip, in a place called Kfar Darom, which is mentioned in the Talmud as a place where there was a yeshiva in the Talmud. And meantime, there were army. It was an army outpost now, with people that were waiting from Yeshivat Yamit, from the yeshiva they were building in the Sinai Desert in Yamit. They were waiting for housing too, and we lived there together. And every day we would drive down. We were 13 families, 2 bachelors, and we would drive down and to the sand dunes and look like maybe somebody's starting to build the greenhouses, because we had a contract to grow tomatoes for export to the States, but there was nothing there. And we there's like barely anything. And one day we're standing on top of one of these huge sand dunes, and we're looking, and all of a sudden we hear noise come from the valley of the sand dune from the southern direction, and out of no place comes this Arab with his kafia and his, jalabia, and he starts walking towards us. And from the other direction we hear another noise, and from the northern direction, and out of the valley of the sand dune, out of no place, comes another Arab with his kafia and his jalabia coming towards us. And in normal times, like today, you might be intimidated by, 2 Arabs coming towards you. But that was before the times of peace, so it was no problem. And they came towards us, and we saw that they had bread and salt in their hands in the Muslim tradition, and they came to welcome us. Bruchim habayim, we're so glad you came.
Did they speak to you in Hebrew?
They spoke to us in Arabic, but Bruchim habayim sounds almost the same in Arabic.
Yeah.
And also, we were families from all different origins. I knew Yiddish from my grandmother, but I definitely did not know Arabic. But we had people from Morocco, from Tunisia. I mean, the grandparents were from Morocco and Tunisia and wherever, Yemen. And so they knew the dialect of Arabic that their grandparents spoke. spoke, and they were able to communicate with them. And I didn't understand, but they kept translating for me. And they told us, welcome, we're so glad that you're here, and we hope there'll be some work for our people. And they were really glad that we came. But you know what? All of a sudden, who were they? One was the Mukhtar, the mayor, the religious leader of Khan Yunis, the nearby town, a little sleepy town. The other one was the mayor, the religious leader of Dir al-Balach, another little sleepy town. Today, both big cities in the news, not for such great things. And all of a sudden, the mayor of Dir al-Balach starts talking to me in English. And he detected when I spoke Hebrew to the other guys from our community that had an Anglo accent. And turns out he had studied in Oxford University in England.
Oh, wow.
And he spoke a perfect English. And he spoke to me and he pointed down at the sand. He said, you guys are crazy. You can't grow anything here. Don't you know this is the cursed land? And we call this land El Drara. El Drara is Grar. And the last people that ever lived here were Abraham and Isaac, our forefathers, our common forefathers.
And you managed to turn that place into like a magical,
with God's help,
green
and
place.
because the advisors of the Ministry of Agriculture had no idea what to do, and they told us to bring heavy soil from the north because there's no way that you can
to bring
grow
heavy what?
Heavy soil from the north.
Okay.
Because there's no way you're going to be able to grow in this totally inert sand that you pour water seeps right down. There's nothing in it, totally inert.
So what did you do?
So we grew in the sand, but they were just developing.
So you grew in the sand.
We didn't have enough time to bring soil from the north and money, and so they were just developing the drip method in Israel, in Netafim. And we were the first guinea pigs. I still have a little bit of guinea pigs. We were the first guinea pigs that tried them out. And it was just perfect for the sand dunes because it just dripped a little bit at a time. You could water 10 times a day a little bit, and that's exactly what you needed, and not a ton of water at one time.
I would have loved to be there when the first crops grew. It must have been like such a huge miracle for you that you were able to grow something from that barren land.
The miracle is when you put the seed in the ground, and you have to have so much faith that something's going to come out. That was really the tricky part.
When you went to the Ministry of Agriculture and they showed you lists of places that were available, did they have a map of Gaza? Was it michulak? Was it divided into any areas, or was it all just like anyone can come, anyone can settle?
Anyone can come and anyone can settle. They were talking about this area because it was empty and there was nothing there. So they thought this was an ideal place because they wanted to have a continuation of Ashkelon all the way to Sinai Desert, where there were towns now. So they were trying to connect the area and along the sea, and there would be a total connection of Jewish towns all the way, which makes a lot of sense. And today it makes sense again.
So you started off in Netzer Hazani.
I'm sorry.
That's okay, sweetie. It's okay. In Gush Katif, and you were there for 30 years. Can you tell me a little bit what life was like in Gush Katif?
It was great. It was really great, especially the first years was really outstanding because people came and they wanted to see, and people came on vacation there. They built a hotel eventually.
Oh yeah, there was a hotel there too.
There was a hotel along the sea, and a lot of people came on vacation there. And it was just beautiful. And all the time you saw things developing, and we were people from so many different origins and mentalities and customs, and we each learned to enrich our lives from the differences between us. From food, from customs, from a synagogue. We had one synagogue we were about 19 different Eidot, you say Eidot customs. And it was something. There was something in the air there, in the sand, in the sea, from Avraham Avinu. I don't know that he was able to connect to the place. There was something, you felt it. You could feel that there was something inspiring that enabled you to be more open, more relaxed, more free, and accept other people, accept other differences. And we became very close with our Bedouin neighbors, our Arab neighbors, who was using such primitive ways of agriculture still. They would like you read from the Torah, like when they threw the wheat up in the air to separate the now before Shavuot, they always did it before Shavuot. They threw it in the air, the wheat, and they used up there was very little water there, and all the sweet water would flow down to the sea because that was the lowest place, and they would just dig down near the sea at the water table level and plant trees right in there, and they used up all the water, and the Israeli army had to bring water to drink into Gaza City because there was no drinking water.
Really?
I don't know what's happening now. I
How
think
long
we
ago was
connected
this?
the
Recently?
in the beginning. Now
No.
they're connected to the Israeli grid,
Right.
water grid.
Yeah.
But we're at fault for that. We demanded that they get water too. But really, everything was very primitive, and we taught them modern agriculture, and they were very appreciative of it until they brought Yasser Arafat and started talking about peace. And the first thing that he did was hang the mayor of Deir el-Balach, this nice man, Mukhtar, who spoke English, and his whole family in the streets of the town of Deir el-Balach.
He hung them?
He hung them on a tree. Yeah, because he wanted to show who was the strong person. That's their culture. If you're strong, we respect you. If you're weak, we step all over you.
And before then, you had a lot of Arabs come working in
also
your
working,
area.
but also friends who
friends.
invited us to their weddings, to their smachot. We shopped in Gaza City. We shopped in Khan Yunis. At that time, there were no paper diapers in Israel. And we used to get them sent from the States. But then we discovered that in Gaza they had stores, and in Khan Yunis for the United Nations personnel who needed the paper diapers too. And we would go to those stores and shop. And I remember till today, I would go shopping for vegetables in Khan Yunis, and I would leave my baby. I had 5 children, 2 were born there, and I had left my baby in the greengrocer's store. He watched him, and I went shopping in the next store. And some of the ladies in our town who didn't have licenses did their learning driving lessons in Gaza. They went to the optometrist in Gaza to get glasses.
So all of this came to an end when Yasser Arafat came into power.
That was the beginning of the end, because when they started talking of peace, and then they made the first peace agreement when we weren't allowed.
Tell me how that's connected. How striving for peace was the end of peace.
It's so simple, because the Arabs taught us way before. They taught us their culture is different than ours. If you're strong, we respect you. If you're weak, we step all over you. And that's how they treated their family, their children, their wives. Really, towards their relationships towards each other was based on that. And as long as we were the strong ones, they totally respected us. And as soon as you showed any sign of weakness, then you could feel that they stepped on you. I think the first time there was ever anyone from our towns that was stabbed in the town of Khan Yunis was the day that Begin met Sadat for the first time. Now, I thought that was wonderful. We're going to have some better times, like shalom. Wow, it sounded, that's what we were educated to strive for peace. And they saw that as a weakness. If you're willing to meet with Sadat, that means you're willing to give us land. That's the first step in your weakness. And that's the first time somebody was stabbed.
They say that a lot of the kibbutzim in the Otef were full of people who were left-wing.
Right.
What was your connection to them when you were in Gush Katif?
It wasn't very good. When they were ready to throw us out, they were always demonstrating that, leave and go, and it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't pleasant.
Because
although we all knew them. We all knew. Sometimes we had business relationships with them.
But you would think they're also in the Otef.
Right on there. Right on there. They were brainwashed, really. They had no idea. Even though they themselves, for many years, the first years, they went to the sea, they enjoyed it, they traveled there too. Sometimes you get into a hole and it's hard for you to get out of it because you don't see the reality in it.
You're talking from their perspective.
From their perspective, because today, we have connection now in our efforts to build Gush Katif again in Gaza, or not Gush Katif, just to have Jewish towns again. We're in contact with a lot of the people from the outside Gaza periphery, and a lot of the kibbutz people there have changed their opinion.
Yeah.
Therefore,
I would hope so.
It. Not all, but many. Many have. It's not easy for a person to change his ideology. It takes
I know,
time.
and to admit that you may have been wrong And my question to you is, a lot of people knew that it was a very bad decision to take Jews out of Gush Katif. A lot of people now think that if you guys were still there, then October 7th wouldn't have happened. What do you think about that cause and effect? And what do you say to people who were for the Hitnatkut?
Look, it's to me, it's so obvious. First of all, I look at the map of Israel. This is an integral part of the map of Israel. It's a continuation from Ashkelon down south along the sea. It's part of the western Negev. The Gaza periphery towns are really the western Negev. And it's just a few kilometers to the sea. It's like a whole crazy concept that people just don't look at the map. We're talking about a very small area, and it's the outlet to the sea for the whole country, for the whole Negev. You want to leave it this way, you'll have the Arabs on one side, Bedouins on the other side, and everyone else in between, and it's going to end soon. It can't continue like that. And it's not something natural. And of course, there was Jewish towns in Gaza all through Jewish history.
That's
and
right.
Just now, the Friends of the Merkaz Katif, the government office that is to memorialize or to keep up the traditions of Gush Katif, they put out a little booklet about the Jewish history of Gush Katif. And all along the generations, there were Jews.
And I heard an interview that you were saying that even in Gaza City, there was a Jewish community, that there was this guy named El Kayam, what's his name?
Right, El Kayam.
El Kayam, who went to his old house and he saw the place where the mezuzah was, and there was another Arab family living there, and they said that they kicked them out. It's fascinating.
And we saw his Talmud Torah, where he studied Aleph Bet. He told us, and I felt his longing from home, and I always tell that from him, I learned that it's okay to long for home, and there's nothing political about it. There's nothing on my right or am I wrong. To long for home is an emotion that's okay, and I really long for home very much. And today we have a lot of people that are from Gush Katif that are interested in going home if they can.
I want to talk to you about that in a minute, but I want to go in order because we have so many things to discuss. I want the people who are listening to hear about your story because I think it's extremely important, especially from what's going on now with the war. How well do you remember the day of the disengagement?
I remember it too well.
Too well. Is it very clear in your mind?
Very clear.
Okay. So I read also that from an interview, and this interview was done a few days before the Hitnatkut, that you had no intention of leaving. You didn't pack. You were just there, and you were, as the guy said, you were just another person in Gaza who wasn't going anywhere, right?
And I planted, and I refused to
turn off the water. Right.
I first, just the day before, I planted new plants. And
so when did the government let you know that this is their plan? When did you find out?
Quite a few months before.
Okay.
A year and a half before he announced it. I mean, it was like from afar, but no one spoke to us for a long time. But when they did, they kept saying,
what did it come in a form of letters?
Army officers came to notify us. And then we got a letter we didn't let them in. So they were supposed to deliver us a letter. We didn't let them in. I think our feeling was that we were going to do the most. Ishtadlut, you say in Hebrew, is making your biggest efforts that you can. And you look at the challenge and you also look upwards, because every challenge, you're saying, God, you're in charge here. We're going to try to influence in reality, but we're also going to try to influence above. And between the two, maybe this is going to happen. That's the most that we can do. But in your life, you always want to be able to look behind and say, I did the right thing at the right time. So that's what we felt was the right thing, the moral thing to do for Israel, for our family, for the people of Israel, for the Arabs that live there, for humanity, for morality. It was the right thing to do. And the amazing thing was that our children, we, like you always educate them, I always say this, we always educate them to be like David and Goliath. If there's a big challenge that comes up and nobody goes to meet it, even if you're a young person, you've got to try to meet this challenge, but you don't really mean it. I mean, we don't really, you tell your kids to be Zionists and come on Aliyah, but you don't really want them to come on Aliyah. You know, I meant everybody else's kid, not my own. You know, and it's with so many things, even in our lives here in Israel. But when this happened, our kids acted like David against Goliath. They were the leaders of the whole struggle. They did everything. They didn't go to school for a year. They went all over the country to speak, to influence. And I'm so glad they did that, because today when they look behind, they say, we did the right thing. We tried our best, and we don't control the world, but we're going to keep yearning for home.
Do you think the government thinks they made a mistake?
I'm positive. Most of the people, we have this group working in the Knesset and with ministers and speaking to them all the time, and most of them totally understand. The ones that are now totally understand that this was wrong.
But you think that the people that in the government, people in the army, they would be a little bit smarter or future thinking than us. They would actually understand the cause and effect of something. How could they actually think that giving up this land was actually going to bring any kind of peace? It's not like our Arab neighbors are new neighbors. We've had them for a long time. We understand, like you said, that strength is the most revered. So how could we do something that was so against what was good for us?
I don't know what the truth is, but at that time there were rumors that Sharon had a lot of trouble because his son had gotten.
I am so sick of hearing that.
I don't know if
not
it's
from
true.
you, but like.
No, I don't know if there's any truth in it or it's not true. But what he did was so illogical. It was totally illogical, and certainly for Arik Sharon and for the people around him. Not recently, but maybe 10 years ago, I spoke at Bar Ilan University, and there was the lawyer, I can't remember his name right now, it was his lawyer who advised him to do this thing, and he lives in the States now. But, he said, I would do the same thing again. He did the right thing, and, so you could hear from the way he was talking, and he's not living here anymore, that he didn't really care about Israel. He was caring about whoever his client is. He was going to do the most. I don't know, and I don't think it really matters, because what matters is that we try to think logically now.
But I'm only here for 30 years. And I don't think, and I don't want to say lashon hara against the government. It's our government and whatever, but it seems to me that they make decisions that are not for the good of the Israeli people.
I presume they have millions of pressures on them from 1,000 different directions.
Yes, and mostly from United States, who definitely plays a big role in making the decisions. Right. Especially during this war, you see a lot of things that were very confusing, that if they were real, like destroying Hamas, why are we still in this war?
I don't know.
Why is this taking so long?
It's crazy.
It's like we're dragging around this ball and chain with us instead of doing what really needs to be done. I'm not a violent person. I know you're not a violent person, but I don't want another person to be kidnapped.
And you also speak to your sons, and I speak to my grandchildren that are in the army, and
I don't want my kids.
They don't understand what's happening either. They really don't. They're frustrated.
It seems like everything is so convoluted and confusing, and I'm wondering, I ask myself all the time, who is running the show in this country? Who's running the show?
I hope it seems to me, unfortunately, it's a little bit like the Hamas and the Arabs. That's what it looks like. I hate to say that. But you see, the Arabs, I don't think they agree with Hamas. They voted for Hamas because they were under pressure. But the average person there would like to live like a man.
Do you think so? Do you think
that the average person, but the culture is very different. Again, we're going back to that cultural thing. That's how if the Hamas is strong, then I'm going to be with them. And we're not. We always have opposition, but the average person that I knew on a personal level, they were people who just wanted to have a good life.
Yeah, but the average people that you knew, if they knew where a hostage was, would they return it?
No, only only whoever was the strongest one at that moment. If the Hamas has the choke on them, then they're going to be with Hamas. Morality is not the top. Not by us either, unfortunately.
You're right. Okay, so let's go back to the day.
But the majority of the people, majority of the members of the Knesset and the government, I think are moral people, and they're just confused by I don't know. It's very hard to understand, very hard. Now, right now, the most logical thing in the world is to, first of all, first step, the poor people in the Gaza envelope should be able to go home, and they cannot be living next door to the Arabs that killed them. There's no logic whatsoever in that, that's for sure. So today, take away that land, give them agricultural land right there, so nobody can go in there.
What is there right now?
Arabs are living there, but they took them out because they're shooting there, then they put them back, then they take them out.
So it is being, there are people that are actually inhabiting that area.
Yeah, they were inhabiting that area, yes.
Have you seen any pictures from that area?
Sure. I even saw my son's greenhouses that are still standing, and there's an Arab that are working those greenhouses. Among them is someone that is his client. He's a CEO now of a company that markets turfs, soils and one of them is his client in there, and he works his greenhouse, his old greenhouse. And recently, he, as part of the group of people that are trying to work on going back from Gush Katif, that try and work on approached the law company that helped us with our, at that time when we were thrown out, to give in a demand to get the greenhouses back, that we should at least be allowed to go in and work the land where we live, that a greenhouse property is still standing there. We didn't get compensation. It was some kind of a deal.
Yeah, so let's get into that. The day of the Hitnatkut, what time of day did the army show up at your door?
Oh, it was very interesting because we all were standing at the gate of Netzer Hazani because we knew they were coming. We saw thousands of our IDF soldiers, because our children were in the best units in the country. And we're standing there, the few hundred people of the town and all the youth, they were in the forefront. And they put a sign on the gate facing the soldiers that said, "B'netzer ma'aminim ba'kadosh baruch hu be'emunah shlema." We believe in full faith in God. That's what they put up. And I'm talking about kids without kippahs, with kippahs, all kind, every kind, like in every place.
What was the mood like?
We have to do our most to try to stop them. That was the feeling, that we've got to do the most to try to stop.
Were you afraid? Were you nervous? Were you
sad? I think a little sad. Sad, but with the fighting, we were doing our most with a feeling of we were doing our most that we could, and that's what we had to do. And they were coming down, and we sang Hatikva and Ani Ma'amin, and there were media from all over the world there. I don't know why they were so interested in the story.
Well, it's a very powerful story, and
they were from all over the world, and the kids put these garbage cans in front of the gate, and they set fire to them, and the smoke was going up so high, and the feeling of destruction was horrible, and everybody was crying, including the media people, which is, and then we went to our own homes to do our own private parting from a home, or fight for your home, however you want to say it. And a home is not just a building. A home is when your grandchildren go from one grandmother's house to the other grandmother's house. And my grandchildren had the other grandmother next door to me, and she had a 2-story beautiful home, and she decided to take all the furniture out of her home before, and her family home. And when the soldiers broke through the gate and started marching in, she put wood and kerosene into her own home and set it afire, and the flames were going up so high, and all the soldiers were around her home. And the fire was spreading all over, and she's yelling, Michal is her name, she was yelling at the top of her lungs, "My dear soldiers, you came here to destroy my home? I'm destroying it myself, because I want you to understand that my home is not the blocks and not the tiles. My home is the spirit of this town, the families that live here. You're not going to destroy the spirit of this town. You're not going to destroy the values. You're not going to destroy the people. I'm destroying this so you'll understand it." The flames were going up so high, and the smoke even higher. But of course, she didn't think of the fact that when you set fire to your house, it might start spreading all over the place. And then you need someone who's very practical and realistic to try to save the situation. Of course, that was me. I didn't care what was happening in my house. I ran out to pull the neighbors out of the house so that the fire would spread. And it was a whole mess, called the fire department. And then all of a sudden, I see near my house. I'm walking around there trying to solve the problems. And I see, in my house, we didn't pack anything. Everything was just the way it was all the years. That was part. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm giving you a little extra time on this. Maybe you want to change your mind. It was like the last thing I had left to
Not
protest
even a
with.
bag, not
Nothing,
even
nothing,
like a
nothing,
pair of
nothing,
underpants,
nothing. I had a
nothing.
fight with my daughter who insisted on taking out a few pictures before I fought with her over. I said, no, you're giving in to them. But she wanted to take out a few pictures. But all of a sudden I see, and they were also, the whole family, even those who didn't live there, I had already three married children, and they were all there. And two of them lived in Netzer Hazani. They were farmers on their own right already. And one was engaged. He was the youngest was engaged. He was an officer in a elite Golani unit. He left the army just a few months before in order to be part of the protest, not to take out his family, God forbid.
Wow, could you imagine? Could you imagine?
I see 15 Air Force officers walking down the long path towards my house. Three. Apparently, the plan was that the first three would knock at the Tucker family door, try to convince them to leave nicely. If that didn't work, the next three. Certainly 5 rows of 3 Air Force officers would convince the Tucker family to leave. They had those vests on them. One side of it was the picture of the flag of Israel, which is like the Kahol Lavan of the Tchelet Lavan of the Torah also. So it doesn't matter if you were that type or that type, it might influence you. And the other side was the menorah, the symbol of the Knesset of Israel, and also the menorah, the symbol of the temple. So it didn't matter which side you were on, they would be able to influence you, to weaken you, and to get you to leave. But what happened was like really crazy. I'm standing looking at this, and all of a sudden I see my oldest daughter, this nice, quiet, skinny gal, run outside, and with one big push, she pushes all 15 Air Force officers into the house and starts yelling at them. Every one of you right now are sitting around this dining room table. They had set the dining table beautiful, like it was Shabbat or something, with food, and you're going to sit around this table, and you'll have to hear what we have in our heart, and we have to hear what you have in your heart. And she's yelling at them, and you hear the highest officer, he's the shortest guy, of course, and he calls up his higher officer, calls his higher officer, calls 20 minutes of negotiations till they got permission for this so difficult mission of sitting around the Tucker family dining room table. And finally they all sat down, and everybody starts, I talk, my husband talks, my youngest son said, I was in every army preparation course that you were in. They taught us that we're the most moral, ethical army in the world. Don't you understand that it's immoral, unethical to take 10,000 people out of their home and you have no idea what's going to happen to them? And not a tear dropped from the eyes of any of them. 15 soldiers, not a tear, nothing. Their eyelids didn't move. They were like robots with a glass wall in front of them. And the only one who spoke was the short guy, the highest officer. And every once in a while, he would look at his watch and say, Mrs. Tucker, 12:00, you're going to have to leave your house. You're going to have to leave here forever. And that's it. There was nothing else. And I don't know, then it took about 2 hours of this. And at that point, I don't know how it happened, but I started screaming like a real meshuggah. I'm not a crybaby, I don't cry very easily, but I started screaming like a meshuggah. Dayna Shali, my dear state of Israel, my dear state of Israel. I want so much that my grandchildren sitting here will continue to be part of the Reshit Tzmichat, much more than Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu, much more than the blossoming of the state of Israel. I want them to be able to continue hoping for a good future here. And I'm screaming, Dayna Shali, and apparently I screamed so loudly that they brought the head psychiatrist of the army to my living room, and the head psychologist, and all the media was there, and the whole living room filled up with all these important people. I don't know why, but I don't know what they thought I was going to do. But I must have been sounded really nutty, and
I could imagine.
Yeah, and not a.
What would a psychologist say to you that would make you feel better about the situation? What did they try to say to you?
I think that I was very practical, that I was trying to cause some emotion on the part of the 15 Air Force officers sitting there. But then it started coming from deep inside of me, and I couldn't stop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
I'm sure.
no, there was nothing they could say, nothing. And but not a teardrop from any one of their eyes, and not a muscle moved on their faces, except for Mr. 1200, that's going to leave here forever. No one spoke, nothing happened. The next thing that happened was totally crazy. The same oldest daughter grabbed the first soldier in sight, Mamash B'koach, and grabbed me and pushed us both into my husband and I's bedroom. And she starts yelling at the soldier, my parents have slept on these beds for 30 years. Right now, you're going to give my mother something from your heart for her to take out with her. And she runs out of the door, slams the door shut, leaves me in the bedroom with this cute Israeli soldier. And I look him in the eyes.
How old were you?
Yeah, too old. And I looked him in the eyes, and he burst into tears and he ran out of the room. And I just knew, like, Kadosh Baruch Hu, God gave Anita Tucker a special gift. Maybe we still have a Medina. But before I could think too hard, my daughter pushed in another Air Force officer, made the same speech. My parents said, 30 years, you got to give my mother something for your heart. I looked the guys in the eyes. He ran out of the room crying. And you won't believe it, and I don't even believe it. If they hadn't taken movies, then I don't think I would believe it happened. My daughter pushed in 14 Air Force officers, one after the other. Every one of them, when I looked them in the eyes, they burst into tears and ran out of the room. At that point, I knew, mamash, God gave Anita Tucker a gift, that we still have a Medina, that we still have a lot to work for, and we all have got to try to reach the neshama, the soul of every person that lives in Israel. Everyone can feel it if you reach them properly, if we connect, if we talk to each other. But then it was the turn of the 15th soldier, Mr. 1200, the short guy, and my daughter pushes in the room, makes the same speech, slams the door shut, runs out. I look him in the eyes. This is Tucker, 1200, you're going to have to leave your house, you're going to have to leave your home, you're going to have to leave here forever. And this time I ran out of the room, slammed the door shut behind me, and we started leaving our home for the last time after 30 years. And we all packed a little backpack, everybody packed something. I packed my computer. At that time we weren't yet with the phones, but that seemed much more important than clothing for Shabbat. So Shabbat I had a problem. But everybody took out a little backpack. We left everything behind. And the first to walk out was my youngest son, the one
You left everything behind, all your furniture, your pictures on the walls?
Yeah.
Yeah? Did you get a chance to go back and retrieve?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, but after they were in these containers for a million years, there was nothing to take out. My son, the youngest son, who was Air Force officer, not Air Force, who was an officer in Golani Elite Unit, decided to put on his A uniform, his dress uniform, his dress shirt, as a form of protest. And he walks to the door to kiss the mezuzah, and all of a sudden he pulls out from his pocket a penknife, and with that penknife he cut kriya. He did mourning, a sign of mourning. He tore his shirt as a sign of mourning, because when you leave a part of the land of Israel and give it over to other people, then you're supposed to do customs of mourning, like when somebody dies. So that's what he did, and at that moment my husband cried out with such great pain, God, I didn't educate my children all these years for such a moment to happen. When he's going to do mourning on the land of Israel, are we crazy? Like he was just so upset he couldn't. He was just crying like crazy. And the son walks outside and he looks for a little sand in all the trees and all the grass that was there now, and to find a little sand to bend down and kiss the land where he was born, where he grew up, where he did most of his army service, and where he's supposed to have a wedding a month later. And we didn't know. We thought the wedding might still be there.
Why did you feel so close to the land? What was the connection that you had, that bond that you had?
First of all, as a farmer, you're connected to the land. There's nothing you can do about it. It's really connects you to the land. There was something about those sand that I told you when my children slid down the first time. There's something really special about that sand. And really, when I went to the States, when I went to speak, I hadn't been back to the States. I think I had been back one time all the years. And when I went back, when I was sent to speak all over about it, and I went to try out every beach there was in California and Florida, everywhere, and I couldn't find sand like that anywhere, not in Israel anywhere either. It's very, very special sand. And that it's part of the land of Israel and that we were doing something good and important. And now somebody's telling you that it's not important enough.
Why did they tell you they were kicking you out?
For peace. This was going to bring peace. They don't want to. We can't talk to them. We're going to do a one-sided peace agreement. And there were a lot of people cheering them on as if. I think, but in the beginning, the United States thought they were crazy. At the beginning, they thought they were crazy, that he was crazy. But
what were we supposed to get in return?
Nobody knew. Nobody knew. They thought the Arabs now were going to have it on their own. Stop the terror, and build up your country.
But they never thought that actually bringing them closer to the Gvul was going to be dangerous?
I don't think anybody thought, and then I think really Sharon had other motivations. It's no logic in this, no sense. It didn't make sense then. It didn't make sense. Why destroy a place that's beautiful? Why destroy a place where the Arabs could have a better life? We didn't take land away from them. Nobody was growing anything there. It was brought them. When we shopped in their stores, it brought them income. It brought better. Everything was a better life for them from it. But again, if you show any sign of weakness, the peace agreements were the worst sign of weakness that we could show.
Yeah, it's never works out good for this country, any kind of peace agreement. What did the government promise you when you left? What were the t'naim?
Well, the people who stayed behind and didn't pack, they told them they wouldn't give them any. At the beginning, they said they wouldn't
because they were offering you guys packages.
If you left right away and you moved into these they built 250. When everybody said, "Where are you going to put the people?" So then Sharon put 250 caravans in Nitzan for the 1,700 families that were in Gush Katif, and what were you going to do with the rest? There was no plan. There was no plan whatsoever.
There was no plan.
And at the end, they told us that, we'll put some of you in a hotel in Yam HaMelech and the Dead Sea, and some in Eilat, and some here and some there. And we told them, you're not going to spread us. You're not going to destroy the community. You can destroy the place, but you can't destroy the community. We're all going. When we had no place to go, we said, where do you go when you have no place to go? You go to pray for the everlasting home, to the Bayit HaGadol HaKadosh, and that's how we ended up going to Jerusalem, because we really had no way. The plan was to take us out in these dark green army buses and leave us at Kisufim Junction, which now was attacked by the Gaza envelope.
My son served in Kisufim for a while.
Yeah. So
and just leave you there?
And leave us there, and everybody would go to his relative in Netivot or wherever.
What about a financial compensation? Did they offer financial compensation?
They promised the people who would leave early that they would be compensated, but there was no real contract or deal or anything. There was nothing. And
so what would be your incentive?
At the end, when there were more people who wanted to leave, they weren't even trucks, they weren't containers. They were supposed to put containers down for people who wanted to take it. At the end, they didn't really have the containers. Some people were.
So they didn't care whether you wanted to go or not. No. They didn't care if you were compensated or not. It was, according to them, it was just
very
like,
organized.
Let's just get rid of them.
It wasn't organized.
It wasn't.
I don't want to attack.
Shocking.
I don't want to say that that somebody. It just wasn't organized. It was like a mess. It was a mess. And only when we took the lawyers that helped us, all these volunteer lawyers that helped us, and they sued the government, and they made this committee to check what happened, what was wrong, and they discovered that it was like disgusting. We didn't get any funding for months afterwards. People lost their income. And you didn't even have access to your bank account. Even though it was a Mizrahi bank, they wouldn't let us take money if you had money.
Why?
It was part of the thing, because they were going to get compensation also. It was how it was going to work out. It was like a mess. And so that's when I became a fundraiser. I didn't know anything about it, but there were amazing people that helped us. Every month I gave, an envelope with money to every family, 1,000 shekel, so they would have money to give to the kids who had to go to Opana, to the bus, to go to, we were in these hotels at the end.
What did they think the incentive would be?
But you know what the terrible thing is? They did the same thing now again.
I know.
And at the time we volunteered. We said, we've had this experience. Let us help you think of how to deal with the people from the Gaza envelope. don't do the same things again. Nobody was listening. There was nobody listening to us. They did the exact same thing again. And really, it's not that they didn't use, they ended up wasting tons of money. I mean, some people sit in hotels for now it's like crazy. But so long, we also did. It was disgusting. It ruined your family life. It ruined a lot of kids, left.
I'm
They came
sure.
back. They came back after us, and they all came back to it. But it made a lot of family difficulty. Very, very difficult.
Have any people from Gush Katif left Israel after this?
After this, they left, but they all came back. I don't know anybody who didn't come back at the end. There were people that left.
And where are most people settled now?
Whoever didn't want us in Gaza, in Gush Katif, has us all over the country now. But we're together in several places.
You have like a WhatsApp group, and you all
we're all in contact.
We're
contact at there are a million different.
So let's hear about the road back to Gush Katif.
So
is there a potential for that?
So you know that there is this Nachala organization of Daniela Weiss, and that's the right wing, hip hip hip. We have to do the Eretz Yisrael. But I think much more important is what the people of Gush Katif, who have a moral right, an ethical right, a monetary right to demand at this situation of today to be able to go back home. That's one thing. We care desperately about the people from the Gaza envelope because we were in a similar situation that they were.
But the kibbutzim now, the people
that
are
there
now?
Yeah, the kibbutzim a lot. So we formed a group of leadership from all over the Gush Katif communities who are in contact, talking all the time to the Gaza envelope people that are really, most of them are really with them. And
why do they call it the envelope? It's the otef, right? Otef is like a wrapper or a package or whatever. Why do they call it the envelope?
I don't know, because in my as I see it, it's just part of the map of Israel, and it's not logical. And that line has to be erased. There is no line, the Gaza Strip. There's no such thing. Somebody made it up.
Yeah,
it's like taking Kfar Saba and saying, okay, Kfar Saba now is part of Samaria, because there's no line there. It's the same land.
Yeah.
And here too. And then here it's this little tiny strip. Nobody realized some places it's 5 kilometers wide. That's ridiculous. You're going to have, 2 million. I don't know how many really there, but 2 million Arabs living, what do you expect? What do you expect? And the way it's developed now, if you're not in charge, if you're not the person in charge, then no one's going to respect you there. And if you care about the people that live in Israel, we know what was supposed to happen that day. It wasn't supposed to end at the Gaza envelope. It was supposed to continue from the north and destroy all of Israel. So we're crazy. This makes no sense. So today, these people, we're paying somebody to have to work. Someone who was in charge of all the youth of Gush Katif at that time. She works every day in the Knesset, lobbying, speaking to members of Knesset, speaking to the ministers, drip, 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 drip. And most of them really are with her.
About what? Returning to the Gush?
We have to figure out how to have Jewish towns in Gush Katif. But the problem is our prime minister, that they're hesitant to demand it in the government meetings because he has to have backing from here and backing from here.
Well, they don't know what they're going to do with Gaza even. They don't even know what they're going to do with the...
No, so we're trying to say it's time to speak clearly. It's time to speak clearly a few months ago, it would have been a better time just to say, okay, you did this, now we're...
Exactly.
And first thing, which is so obvious, and everybody all over the world can understand that, you cannot put these Gaza people, envelope people, what we call envelope, on top of the people that killed them. If you're leaving, unless you're doing what Sharon said, Trump said, let everybody leave. And which they really would love to. I mean, we know before there were many people leaving, but the Egyptians charged them $5,000 to get out. They take them out through so only people who had money. We knew people who left.
And where did they go?
Europe. They went to Europe. They sent one child, and he went to university and worked, and then he brought the others, and slowly but surely.
So you're saying that the Gazans would like to leave?
For sure. For sure, but. Somebody all these years, why would they stop? And why were we should have had a bus that was taking them to Ben Gurion, a helicopter taking them to Ben Gurion and flying them to wherever, I don't know, Africa.
And you hear all in the United States, free Palestine, give them back their land. And you're saying they don't even want it.
No, they want a better life. They had enough. Tomorrow the Hamas will be back in. an average person on his own, without everything around it, just wants a good life for himself and his family. It's the most natural thing in the world.
Can I ask you a question? And I think that this is a little bit controversial, but you know how they say that like the Arabs are willing to be martyrs and to die for their cause. I think that people like there are some Israelis who are willing to die for our cause also. I mean, we send our children into wars and into very dangerous places. We don't know if we hope they're going to come back alive, but not necessarily.
To protect, we're sending them to protect.
Obviously, to protect, but we're also taking into consideration that they could possibly not come home, like a lot of soldiers have not come home.
Right.
So what's the difference between our conviction and theirs?
Very big difference.
So can you... I know there's a difference, but I'm playing devil's advocate, and I want you to say.
I think, for me, I mean, at the beginning of the war, I had 10 grandchildren in the army. 4 of them were in Gaza and in dangerous situations. And I think I told you, that's a little side story, that one of my grandchildren who was born in Gush Katif was 3 years old when we were thrown out. And my son and daughter-in-law hadn't heard from him for a long time because they had no telephones. And then all of a sudden his officer went out and he said, you can send a message to your parents that you're okay. And he just sent a little clip where he said, Abba, Ima, ani babayit, akol tov. You know, Dad and Mom, I'm home. Everything is great. And he said it with such enthusiasm. So I think that our soldiers are there because they want to protect our people, our country, and our values, to protect. But when somebody wants to kill everybody, nobody's going to be here in all the Middle East, in all the world, that isn't with us. But I don't think everybody who says that really means it. I really don't. Of the Arabs. I don't think they mean it, no. It's a situation where, again, the same situation where the values is that, you know, the Arabs who push us to kill are the strong ones, so they're going to give me money, then I'll do it. If the Israelis give me the money, then I'll do it for them. And we know that there are people who do it for money for the Israelis too, right?
Right.
And it's a different value system. Our value system, you see somebody unfortunate that doesn't have food or doesn't have money, we want to hug them and kiss them and give them money and food. It's a different value. And it's so hard to take that switch and understand there are people with a different value system. It's just not the same.
Yeah, for us, it's an opportunity to do a mitzvah. And for them, they look at it as like a real low...
You know, if we see somebody unfortunate who's Catholic, who's Arab, who's Muslim, it doesn't matter. We just want to help them. That's our value system. Not only because he's Jewish.
Do you have animosity towards the Israeli society who was for the Hitnakut?
I feel sorry for them. How could they be so immoral and not realize it? That's how I feel.
Do you understand why they were on that side?
They were just brainwashed by the media. You know, one day we had complained to Yediot Achronot that they were always making us sound like, you know, vicious people when we were in Gush Katif, really, and all kinds of things, and they should have a little bit about our good side also. So they agreed, and they said they were going to have once a week, there was going to be a little square at the side of the paper that they would show the nice side. So it was my turn to be interviewed, and I was sitting in the grass with my children and grandchildren, the little kids, and telling them whatever it was, and they had it in the next day. I bought the Yediot, then you still bought the paper, and it was there in the corner. And what was on the other side of the paper? A huge fangs of a dog with these huge fangs and sticking out, and the headline said, the settlers are apparently planning to raise dogs to attack the soldiers, the IDF soldiers. That's what it said in the... Now, you know, it took me time to understand until somebody explained it to me that somebody paid a lot of money to have this to be exactly on the same page with my little picture, a sweet lady grandmother with her grandchildren, to have it on the same page. So I learned a lot about the media and how people are influenced by it. So anybody, an innocent person in Tel Aviv, sees that, so he believes the media. And when our kids went around to Tel Aviv all day long speaking, knocking on doors, People knew nothing. They just knew what they saw on the television screen. They knew nothing.
Yeah.
And they didn't really feel like it was connected to them, even though it was just a few kilometers away from them. It was not connected. And that's why when recently we were on vacation in the Dead Sea, and I was swimming in the sea there with this lady, and she, oh, where are you from? She started swimming, oh, I'm going to go back to Gaza. I said, are you crazy? You want to live there? You want to live there? So I said, yeah, but did you know that Tel Aviv is only like 30 kilometers? She said, what? No, we're far away we have nothing to... She didn't realize that she lives on top of Gaza. She lives on top of it. So it doesn't matter, 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3. It's the same thing. They could have gotten there easily. It's so close. Or they would come by boat. They would have been in Tel Aviv. What are you talking about?
Do you know Nurit Davidi?
Nurit Davidi.
Alon Davidi, he's the mayor
I know Alon Davidi very well. His wife,
so
I don't know.
Do you remember my father was really close
He
with Alon?
He took me to
see Alon?
Yeah, he was at the Bet Knesset. They dedicated.
Yes. They dedicated a Bet Knesset in Sderot for my dad.
Right.
When I had an interview with Nurit, we talked. And she was
saying... That's his wife.
That's his wife,
I know.
And she was saying how, people thought that, when the rockets were falling on Sderot, they're like, it's Sderot, it's never going to happen in Tel Aviv. And it's very mechulek here. The people in Tel Aviv were like, the people in Gush Katif or in Sderot, they're in a different country. Like, we're not connected to them. We don't care if they stay or if they go. But in the end of the day, I think what's really lacking in this country is a sense of unity. That we're all in this together. And it's not about the Sderot, and it's not about the Gush Katif, and it's not about Metula, and it's not about, every Tel Aviv, we're all in this food processor together, We're all ground up as one.
The hardest thing for me is that people, even of the same mind thought as myself, but that live in Tel Aviv or Jerusalem, when I say, I hope to be able to go back and live again in a Jewish town in Gaza. They said, no, there aren't really people they're going to go to live there. You think there are really people that are going to go to live there?
I would go live there.
No, I'm just saying the thought that that means, again, he's thinking of his Jerusalem, and he can... Yeah. And if you're willing to go there, it intimidates him, because maybe there's somebody who really wants to go there. He feels like...
I feel like we have the right to live wherever we want in this country.
So I always say that,
especially because the Ministry of Agriculture gave you this list and said go there.
Yitzhak Rabin. But also I say, and it's not even about living, but it's like an argument in a way. I say, how could it be that Anita Tucker can take her children and her grandchildren to visit Germany, where my parents lived for 30 years? Mm-hmm. I can take my children and my grandchildren to visit Poland, where my grandparents lived for 30 years, and then they've left there. And I can take them a few kilometers here just to visit. That's all. Just to visit where I lived for 30 years. It's a free country. Like, why can't I just, as long as it's safe and the army says okay, but why can't I just go there for a visit?
I'm telling you right now, Anita, we're going back.
I have no doubt about it.
I'm just telling you right now, I'm telling all the viewers, everyone, it is going to happen.
For sure. And we wrote a letter to Trump, by the way. This organization wrote a nice letter to Trump, and they're in touch with the
Did they get a response?
I think they got something. An official letter, whatever it is. But they've taken this lawyer now to talk about, and we're talking about we should give at first stage, give agricultural land to the Gaza envelope towns. And there should be a park south of Ashkelon, a beautiful park in memory of the people that were killed in the Gaza envelope, all those people that were murdered. Yeah, we should have a park in their memory near the sea. That's not logical. It's the most logical thing in the world.
Totally. And
it's nothing political. There's nothing political about it. It's just normal. It's like something normal. What are you talking about? They came in and killed people. But mostly, it's the land of Israel. And if there's an opportunity to live there, we have to take advantage of it. And if it can protect our country, we should be there. And I yearn for home. Very simple, not political.
You're going to go back. I'm telling you right now, you're going to go back. I can feel it. If someone said to you right now, Anita, you can go back. How fast would you be there?
My suitcase is ready.
Really?
Yeah, I have a little suitcase.
Would
ready.
you go back and build the greenhouses and start again?
I don't know if I have the car for it, but
No, but you would go
my
back?
children and grandchildren should. My sons were farmers in Gush Katif, and they, like I told you, my son has one. So his on the picture that they sent us, a friend, a soldier who's there, sent him the picture of his greenhouse. And,
What was the nest, besides the fact that it was you built plants from sand, but what was so special about the vegetables from Gush Katif? I remember we used to buy them.
They were really special. There was a bracha. I
What were
feel
you-
like there
what
was
were
a
you
blessing from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. I felt like there was a blessing from God there. You felt it in everything you did. That because in agriculture you're totally dependent on looking upwards. You don't know if it's going to be enough water. Is there going to be bad weather? I had one year where there was a storm, a terrible. How do you call ice? How do you say?
Sleet,
what I mean.
not snow, hail.
Hail. There
Hail.
was a hailstorm, and it knocked down my home greenhouse, and I was ready to pick the thing. And so, what do? I took pictures for the insurance. I didn't even go under my puch, because that's part of being a farmer, is knowing that. And then another time they told me it wasn't, you had bugs in it, you couldn't sell it for the kosher market. And it was very sad. I was just about to pick this. So I had to wait 30 days longer to see if they can get rid of it. And guess what? 30 days longer, the price was in the sky, and I made a lot of money.
Wow.
So, being a farmer is believing in God and having faith and flowing with the things. And that's all part of it. And the area is all through Jewish history. It was a special place. The Samson, who tried so hard to save the place for Israel, and nobody listened to him. Again, the same thing happened really to Samson.
That land, there's something very
there is something
unique
very
and special about it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And there's something touching it. And all the young people really want to go back. And I think I mentioned to you that some of the older people, we talked about it. We had a weekend in the Har HaZeitim, Mount of Olives hotel there for the older people of Gush Katif. And, we had discussions and talked about it. So some of the older people said, my children go back, my grandchildren, I don't know if I have the car to leave where I'm living. So I said, no, when you see the protective living home that we're going to be building along the sea, you're going to be the first one in line. There's not going to be enough apartments. You better sign up now. And actually, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, I wrote to Protea company that's building in El Canaan. They have all over the country beautiful homes. I wrote to the owner
and asked them about
getting
an estimate for the new houses.
If he might be interested, that we're making plans now for a protected living home along the sea. He might be interested.
How are you?
He wrote me back and he said no, and I was so flattered that he took me seriously and answered me. But you know what? We had a meeting of all architects, very famous architects and city planners, and those who worked in Gush Katif, and they've made plans. And we're trying to find funds to get them printed now.
Manifest
so
it.
You have to be serious.
Yeah.
And if you're serious and there's help from above.
But when you say protective homes, you can't live there if there's still Arabs in Gaza.
Why not?
Because they'll attack you.
No, if we're the strong ones and we're tough and we're the ones who are in charge and of course we can live there. How did we live there for 30 years?
Because there was peace, kivyachol, but now there isn't.
No, the peace is the weakness. The peace is when the attack started against us. Before the peace, when we were only the ones in charge.
So you think we can go back to be
For sure.
the strong ones in charge?
For sure, and we'll benefit the Arabs as well. We'll benefit their lives too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody says, if they go take them all out, are you going to live with them? I said, I lived with them for 30 years. I can live with them again. They have to be willing to live under. If they're not willing, then they have to leave. They're not willing to live under the state of Israel. And I don't think it's right to do. Everything has to have sovereignty. This in-between is silly. It's not benefiting anyone. This in-between, it's just causing every time.
Yeah.
And by the way, Gaza was always under Israel. And according to the United Nations, it was given to Israel. It was not. Egypt didn't want it. Egypt didn't want it. We didn't want it. So
Is there something that you want to promote? Can people help you out, and the people that want to return to Gush Katif? What is there to do now?
So right now we published one time this pamphlet about the history of Gush Katif, and we're trying very hard to make sure that people, Jewish history, that people understand, have a feeling and a connection. So we're trying to print it up. I got a good deal. If I can print 5,000, it's going to cost only $7,000, five shekel. So I'm writing to people and asking. We have an organization, a 501c3 called American Friends of Netzer Hazani, through which we can, anybody who writes to me can get the address, the bank number, whatever. And we have a Keren Yochanan, a Israeli C46 fund, that also we're paying this woman a half a job. Anytime each of us is chipping in money to do it, and everything costs money. Flags. We did flags that said Gush Katif. We're taking a lot, and we're paying the lawyers now to try to put in a demand for the land back, for the greenhouses back. Everything is people who believe in it and feel it's the right thing and love the land of Israel. We'll give them the privilege of taking a little bit of a part in it with us, and we'll be flattered that they want the privilege to be part of this efforts. So you can contact me.
Okay. Do you think that everything happens for a reason?
I think God's in charge of everything, and I don't know the reasons for it, but
has your emunah changed at all throughout this whole thing?
No, I still believe more strongly than ever that we have to do our hishtadlut, our efforts. At the time of the Gerush from Gush Katif, there were many people from Aguda towns, Yisodot, our neighbors, who would write me emails, and they would write, "Why are you making all these efforts? Just pray, because God decided. Even the prayer is not needed. But God decided. So just, if you want, you can pray. But everything you're doing is not right. It's like you don't have faith."
Yeah.
And I wrote them back that I grew up with the understanding that prayer and hishtadlut and efforts, there's no word in English that
right,
says
they go
the same
together.
thing, that go together. And if you want to really prove that you're praying and you're praying seriously, you've got to make some real effort in your real life. And that's how I feel today too. Every effort, I keep looking up and say, Kodesh Baruch Hu, listen to what I'm saying. We really care about the land of Israel. We really care about the land of Israel. We care about the people of Israel. We care about the Torah of Israel. And every effort is in that direction. And yes, I yearn for home, personally. So there's always this balance between your own personal feelings and the reality. But the reality is that if we don't make an effort, we can't look back and say, I did the right thing. And that's the most important. I remember we were invited to Amona. My son and I went to speak there before the second Girush from Amona. And that's one, by the way, that's one of the things I think that killed your dad. He took that so hard when what happened in Amona, when the people were thrown out.
Do you want to say? Do you want to get into it?
Yeah, I can say, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Go.
No, it was very, when after his dad took it very hard when we were thrown out. But then he made every effort to try to help the people in Amona, because it was just a terrible thing. And then everything was they acted so meanly to children, the police were instructed to beat them. It was horrible. It was horrible. There were many people that were injured. Even a member of Knesset were injured. And it was just too much for your dad. He cared so much about the people of Israel and the land of Israel. I think that's what made him sick. He just
100%. Everybody who knows him said that something in him just died.
Right.
And I remember the day of the Hitnatkut when I spoke to him. I don't know if you spoke to him on that day or if you remember speaking to him, but he was just crying. Like, it was just really, really bad. I remember I was in my car. I was driving from Yerushalayim home, and there was just rows of people on the sides of the road, like with, burning things and posters. And I sent him a picture of what was going on, but he was like unconsolable. I mean, that was just really bad. But we are going to go back.
We definitely
are going to go back. It is going to happen,
Yeah. No, it's just, if everybody would just open their eyes and drop, just look at the map. That's enough to make you understand that on any level, this is not logical. At every level, the logical thing is to be there. It's just not logical. If not, it'll happen again.
I love the fact that you're so positive and hopeful, and that you really believe that this is going to happen.
So one thing that I learned after we were thrown out, that there are two ways to go in life when something's challenging happens to you. It's this way or this way. If you stay in the middle, you're just going to fall down.
Exactly.
So right afterwards, we all said to everybody, the leadership said, we're going this way. And that's why we struggled to build again. I was very involved in the building of the new buildings.
You
again.
go, Anita. You go.
New buildings again. And all the time I kept telling people, it's going to be the most beautiful synagogue because we're practicing building the new one in Gush Katif. And also it was a tikkun, a repair of what we all allowed to happen. Could you believe it? When the last soldier left Gush Katif and they locked the door, we allowed thousands of Arabs with these bullhorns yelling, Itbach al Yad, massacre the Jews, and they came with axes and fire sticks and tried to destroy 52 synagogues that were in Gush Katif. They destroyed, I think, 48 of them. And we allowed that to happen after the Holocaust? Are we crazy? All of us, we allowed such a thing to happen. And that's why we built the most beautiful synagogue as a tikkun, but we just practiced for the more beautiful one we're going to build soon.
I don't believe in the government, and I don't really believe in most people, but I believe in God, and I believe that there is a plan, and I believe that we're all going to return back there, and there is going to be a complete geula, not only in Israel, but in the entire Middle East.
It has to be. Truth and justice and peace. Yeah. Whatever that means, I don't think it means what we think. It's pieces. Yeah. I call that pieces. This is justice and truth and all the values that are important to a Jew that we were brought up to be important. Those are the things that everything we do, we're struggling in that direction. And, we're not struggling for anything else.
Anita, it was amazing having you here today. And it was a real honor, not just because that you knew my dad, but because of all the things that you've been through and what you're doing now for Am Yisrael. And if you need me for anything, b'simcha rabbah, I'll help you out as much as I can. And I wish you a lot of success in the future. I can't wait to come visit you in the original Netzer Hazani.
God willing, you're going to build a nice house along the sea.
Yes.
We have lots of people that want to invest in the seaside.
Yes.
Real estate.
100%. I'll be one of the first people there for sure. For sure. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you for watching and listening. Okay. Bye. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.